Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Tuesday, Canada Day, and all of our guests today brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. My understanding is that later this week, Able will have an auction, and they're putting up for grabs red shirts. And our Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox and Langley and Aldergrove inbox chock full of people saying how disappointed they are in Rick, Ryan, and I not wearing red, and all I can say is, I'm sorry.
Apologies.
Are bad. But we know that Iain MacInyte, Sportsnet.ca, he'll be wearing red. Here he is.
Yes.
He's down at Rogers Arena. There you go. Okay. You got your. Is there red in the tie?
No, but I have a red tie with me, but it's kind of a tartan pattern, and my sports jacket. I know you'll be right into this information, Donnie. You were always such a fashionista on television.
Yeah.
I've got a check jacket, and I tried the jacket and the tie, and it was just too wild. It was too wild. So I've changed. I'm sorry, I do not have red.
Ha! The sad
but
part,
I have white. I have white. That's
okay.
Canadian colors, white and red.
1 for 2. Not bad. I put a red shirt away last night. Like I hung, and I forgot about it this morning. Again, my apologies. Okay, Iain, moving on. Enough about fashion here on Canada Day. What about what the Canucks are up to? Let's start with Brock Boeser. 7 years, 7.25 per. I think most people were surprised by that. What about you?
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, but I got to share a little story. So we knew that Brock was on holiday, so I had resisted reaching out to him, but he was back yesterday, so I sent him a text. And, he probably had a few hundred of them waiting for him when he checked. But anyways, he texted me back this morning at 4:30 my time. So that was good because I needed a wake-up call. Just saying it's an exciting time, but a stressful time trying to figure out what to do. And it was like, okay, so he hasn't made a decision yet. So happy for him. And I'm happy for the Canucks. But I'm really happy for Brock because he's a guy who bleeds Canuck colors. And as you guys know, that hasn't always been easy to find over the years. And here's somebody who badly wanted to stay, was genuinely hurt a little bit at the deadline, how things were handled. And not that the Canucks would necessarily look at moving him, but maybe just some of the things that were said. But in the end, the team circled back, and we believe the team came up a little in term, and Brock came maybe down a little in AVV, and they found a way to get it done. So Brock follows his heart, comes back to the Canucks, didn't want to leave. And it's a very good day for the organization to have him re-signed, especially on the heels of announcing the extensions for Demko and Garland. Clearly, they are embracing guys who want to be here, and I think that's a big statement.
Are you as worried? And I'm not. I'll go on record as saying that. I did in the last segment. Are you as worried about Brock's speed down the line as everybody else seems to be?
I mean, Brock has to score goals, and he has to create offense, and he has shown that he is well equipped to do that at the NHL level, even with his skating. Of course, it would be great if he had another step. Even Brock, I think, would love another step. But this is a reality. I don't think for the way he plays, his effectiveness on the power play, how smart he is with the puck. I don't think skating is something that's going to undermine him any more than it has now. I don't see it as more of an issue in the future than what it is now. And, in the end, he's got to, as I said, he's got to have a bottom line. He's got to score goals. He's got to create offense. But when he's been healthy, he's been able to do that on a very good complementary level, like play him with a good center. We saw what he did with JT Miller. We'll see if, how much they try him with Pettersson. I know there's a lot of confidence in the organization that Pettersson's going to come back and be a better player, but Brock has shown himself to be really good. And I think the other thing, and I hate to waste all our time with a soliloquy, but I think the other thing here is we know that the team has looked at trying to make a trade for a center, and that's not to replace Brock. That's to replace JT Miller and give them a few more options. We all know the question marks over Pettersson and Hedel. The team's been trying to trade for a center for a couple of months and have just been stymied essentially by market forces. This new era of the NHL where every team suddenly has money that has not had money for years. And no matter how bad they are, unless it's like San Jose and Chicago, they feel like that money, that'll buy 2 or 3 players and then they can be good. Every team is trying to be good. So it's hard to get good players from anybody in trade. We saw at the draft that the draft pick just didn't have the value in trade that you would expect of a mid-first round pick. And the Canucks got a player they liked in Braden Coots, but that wasn't their first choice. And then you come to free agency, you see how little is on the board. If you're Vancouver, you've probably changed your opinion a little bit. And we'll see what Patrick Allvin says. I know that the team had always, the negotiations weren't always ongoing, but they were periodic. There'd been contact between the sides. I think this new reality, this new landscape that the NHL is in, where it's so hard to, at the moment, it's so hard to acquire players. There's so little available in free agency. I think it made Boeser's return to the Canucks that much more important for the organization. And I know it was always important to Brock.
Well, what's also important today, Thatcher Demko gets done. Money's high, but the term is nice and low for a guy who's had a horrible year with injuries. What was your take on the Demko contract, Ian?
Well, it kind of like, with Brock, 7 years at $7.25, it's a compromise. We should all be so lucky, by the way, to be able to compromise and still end up with $50 million.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think with Thatcher, again, this is a compromise. So Thatcher obviously is leaving term on the table, prime years, where you would expect him to be entering into a long-term deal for a lot of money. And in return, the Canucks rewarded him with an AVV that, is a little bit eyebrow-raising, just considering the problems that Thatcher had with his health and then his form last season. But I actually like the deal from the Canucks standpoint because they mitigate the risk by doing 3 years instead of 5 or 6 or 7, or who knows, maybe even 8. They pay a little more, but I just talked about all the money rushing into the system. That said, there's going to be a cap crunch. The Canucks are going to have to make some decisions before September. But if there was a time that they could afford it, now is the time they can afford it. And it also reflects, I think, the fact that the team is willing to do this deal now, that they have a lot of confidence that Thatcher is healthy and is going to come back and have the kind of rebound season from an injury-plagued year that he had 2 years ago. Because if they were really worried about it, they're a year out from free agency still. They could easily have let this go into the start of the season. Let's see how he looks in November. We'll make a decision by Christmas, certainly before the trade deadline. They didn't do that. They jumped in now, and they seized the opportunity to sign a guy who, when he's healthy and he's on, we know he's an elite goalie, was the Vezina Trophy runner-up just 13 months ago. Get him now for 3 years. And I think it's good business. I also think, as to my earlier point, it means something to this regime, which has lost a couple of guys and maybe even their coach and Rick Tocchet because they waited. It means something to this regime that the guys that they like, who really want to be back, and both Garland and Demko had expressed a strong desire to come back and sign an extension this summer and not have to wait another year. It means something to the organization to keep those guys and keep a team of players who want to be here and believe in the organization.
Ian, I'm still worried about second-line center. I know they're going to poke around. Philip Hedl, by nature, should be your, third-line center. He's never had more than 50 points, or 45, I think is his highest. That's a bit of a concern, who's going to get the puck to Boeser. He loved JT Miller. What about second-line center? Can they still do some shaking and baking this summer to fix that?
Well, it's hard to see, Rick, where the money is going to come from for that. You look at what Dvorak got. Mind you, only a 1-year deal. So 1 year, and he got the most money he could. $5.4 million. Well, if they'd signed Dvorak, I don't think people would say, well, he's the second line center, because his numbers are even lower historically than Hedl's. So I think they're kind of resigned to the reality that their centers might have to be Pettersson and Hedl. We know that Pettersson is, whatever's gone on the last year and a half, we've seen it from Pettersson that he can be an elite player. The organization believes that he's going to be elite again for them, and that he can be a legitimate first-line center. The organization obviously also thinks that Hedl has more to his game than what he has shown, and with opportunity can provide more points than he has in the past. And let's keep in mind, this day and age, second-line center doesn't have to be getting you 65 points. You could have 50 points and be a pretty good second-line center in this league. But the question to me, it's not whether Hedl's capable of doing it, because we saw the skill set that he has in that short time after the trade from New York and before he got another concussion. We've seen that he's got tremendous skills, and with opportunity, with power play, a few more minutes, yes, he can get more points. I'm confident in that. It's just the medical history, and somebody that young who's had so many serious head injuries. I mean, you wouldn't wish that on anybody, no matter whether they're a hockey player or not. You don't want to have someone in their mid-20s having to deal with issues that are potentially quality of life issues. But, Hedl told us at the end of the season that he felt really good and would be ready to go, would have a full training this summer. And the fact that the Canucks have not, to this point, forced a move, because you don't want to make a bad move. We all know that as well. They haven't forced something at center so far. I think they're prepared to go with Hedl as a second line center until they have to pivot and do something else. Now, that said, who knows? They circle back on Boeser. Lots of things can change, and maybe they still go and get a center. But right now, having spent the money on Brock, because if you were going to bring in a true second line center, that was probably the money that would have gone to that. They brought Brock back. Right now, it's hard to see how they're going to do that, how they're going to make another impact addition.
No red shirt, no red tie, but that interview could not have gone better, Iain. Hey, we're off this week. At the end of this week for the summer, we'll be back in 2028. But we can't thank you enough for your contributions, Iain. Just fabulous. We have all sorts of positivity regarding your contributions to our show and our inbox, and we can't appreciate it. We can't tell you enough how much we appreciate it. Well, that means a lot to me, Donnie, and of course you said it, not Dolly. But anyways,
I love you. I love you. I know
you do. You've reached out to me in times of need, so thank you, Rick. And you guys have a great summer. You certainly have earned it. I know you're busy today, Iain. Can't thank you enough. Thanks so much, my friend. See you guys.